Hello, I am here to describe my asset allocation for our starting turn 0. Um, some background information is we start with 8 assets. We can place on any of our homeworlds or any unoccupied world, unless it's TL5, in which case it needs to be starting on Lovelace, which is Triangulum's homeworld. Our values are 7 Force, 7 Cunning, and 7 Wealth, which allows us to buy almost anything. And any asset we start with are free, which makes them starting expensive units very helpful. Also, a note here is that we can have as many units of a specific type as we want, but for each one above our 7, it costs uh, a fact cred per turn, and we have 7 fact creds per turn currently. So if we have like 10 force assets, we're going to be spending 3 fact creds per turn on those 3 force assets. So it's better to spread them out so we don't have to pay the extra maintenance costs. Also, each turn we get an action. I've listed a few very basic ones. We can either buy an asset, we can attack, and an attack action is with all assets on a specific planet against an enemy, and it's an opposed to D10 roll where we both add our cunning, wealth, or force, depending on the units. If you look at the PDF, it'll specify. So, for example, the venture capital is a wealth versus wealth attack. So we'll both roll d10s and we'll both add our wealth scores. And then whoever wins does 2d6. If we tie, we both do the damage. So we would do the 2d6, and if they're defending with venture capital, they do 1d6 damage back to us. Or if they just won the result, they'd do the 1d6 damage back to us. Okay. Another option is rebuild. We can restore some health to any asset we have. We can also build a base of influence or add HP to existing ones. This would be good in case we're trying to bulk up our bases of influence, as we currently have 7 HP in a lot of them, which is very low. Or we can do the special action turn, which activates all special actions on a turn. And a lot of the units I'm proposing today have special actions, so we can do a whole bunch of things on one turn, rather than just one thing. So now we get to the assets. Start off with the wealth assets. I want to start with 2 pre-tech manufacturers. These activate using the special action thing. Um, Essentially, each turn we roll a d8, or each time we activate them, we roll a d8, and we gain half that many fact creds rounded up. So each asset in the game has a fact cred cost. So, like if we wanted to make pre-tech researchers, it costs 14 fact creds. So you can tell with the average on a D8 being a 4.5, we get about 2.5 fact creds per turn from each of these. So having 2 of them gets us about 5 fact creds per turn, which is a nice flex of income on top of our 7 that we get every turn automatically. Also, it is rounded up. Just a note, I messed that up for a while. So if you roll a 5, you will get 3. If you roll a 4, you will get 2. They also have a cost of 25 fact creds and health of 16, but no attacking options. So these are very helpful for our economy, and they're also a stack of hit points that we can use to defend against. So like if we only have a pre-tech manufactory and then the base of influence, we can use the pre-tech manufactory to soak up the damage that people are using to attack our homeworlds. They are TL5 though, so they do need to start on the Triangulum homeworld Lovelace, but we can move them to whatever place we want after the first turn. Um, the next asset I suggest is the commodity brokers. These also go on a special action and work very well in combination with pre-tech manufacturers because they so every time you activate them, you roll a d8, and that the cost of the next asset you buy will be reduced by that number. So if you roll a 5 on the d8, the next asset we try and buy will be reduced. Their cost will be reduced by 5. This cannot reduce it back past half the normal price, rounded down. So in the case before where I showed you where you're going to buy the pre-tech researchers, if we rolled an 8, we could still only reduce the cost of the pre-tech researchers by 7. No matter how to. This is why we only have one of them, because if we have 2, they don't stack very well. Because if you roll high, then you're just wasting a lot of fact creds. They have a cost of 20 and a health of 10, and they can also stack wealth versus wealth and do 2d8 damage and retaliate with 1d8. So they're a decently strong asset that We don't necessarily want to attack with because if we destroy them, we lose a lot of our economy gain. But it's nice for defense and protecting a specific homeworld, which is why I think we should start on Lyra's homeworld, Orpheus over here, because with our because it's kind of isolated all by itself over there. So it would be helpful if we have a unit there to protect it. And since the commodity brokers don't really want to attack, they kind of just want to sit back and defend. It would be a nice defensive unit to have there. All right, next up is the transit web. This transit web has no action. It just has one fat cred and it allows you to transport in between two worlds. So the specifics are, for one fat cred, any number of non-starship cunning or wealth Essex may be moved between any two worlds within 3 hexes of the transit web. This can be done freely as long as on the owner's turn, so long as the fee can be paid and using the ability doesn't require an action. It has a cost of 15 and a health of 5, and I can also attack cunning versus cunning with 1d12 damage. But it's such a good utility item, it's bad to attack with it unless absolutely necessary. It is TL5, which means it's required to start on the Triangulum's homeworld, or Lovelace as it's known. And it can be used to move any other cunning or wealth TL5 assets immediately off planet without expending an action, which is very nice. Because we only get one action per turn, so it's nice to have things that work together. I also think we should move it turn, depending on Adam's ruling, we should either buy a unit to move it to turn 1 or move itself turn 1 to 406 in Aomori or Tibber, because that will allow us to transport any wealth or cunning asset on any of our homeworlds among any of the other homeworlds, which is a very nice movement thing since we are so spread out. Now on to the cunning assets. The Book of Secrets was my first suggestion. Once per turn, a Book of Secrets allows the faction to reroll 1 die for an action taken on that world, or force an enemy faction to reroll 1 die. This can only be forced once per turn, no matter how many we own, but it's very helpful on defensive circumstances because it allows us to make them reroll or us reroll depending on whichever has a higher chance of succeeding, so that we succeed in the combat. It costs 20 as an HP of 10 and can retaliate with 2d8 damage. So you can already see that it's a very defensive item. It has no attack value, so it's just made there to make sure that no one can attack this specific planet. It's TL4, so it can start on any homeworld, but I do think it should start on Serpens, because you'll notice that Serpens is on the same tile as Acre and the UPC, which is very dangerous for Serpens because it's very easy for them just to move assets straight onto Serpens and destroy them. Okay, up next is the popular movement. This asset allows us to pervade all levels of government, and the government always grants any asset purchase or movement requests made by the faction. So no one can block us from moving specific units onto a tile, or stop us from buying items on a tile. It has a cost of 25 and an HP of 16. It can attack with Cunning versus Cunning, 2d6 damage, and counter with 1d6 damage. It's TL4, so we can put it anywhere, but I suggest that we put it on Imperial Prime, because if we put it on Imperial Prime, we can build. Imperial Prime is also a TL5 planet, so we can build TL5 assets right in the middle of our territory rather than on the edge, which is Lovelace. It's also much easier to defend Imperial Prime than it is to defend Lovelace. So from a strategic point of view, it's a much smarter location. It also allows us to permanently move items there, so if someone tries to block us from going there, we can always move there if we want to. Onto our force assets, I think we should start with the Space Marines. The Space Marines can move with a special action. That's one of their abilities. As an action, they can move to any world within 1 hex of their current location, whether or not the planetary government permits it. So this is very helpful if we considering we're so closely packed together, we can just move the Space Marines to whichever planet needs help. It also has a cost of 30, which is the second most expensive unit in the game. That's why I think we should start with it, because it's very difficult to purchase. It has 16 health and attack of Force v Force of 2d8 plus 2 damage, and counterattack dealing 2d8 damage. It's a good defensive unit, and it's a good It's a good unit just to protect us in general because it's very mobile. I think we should start it on Aquila, which is Dai Daimikato 506, because it's or near Hero, so we can protect there if we need to, or we can move to one of these Aomori or Tibur if they're under attack from the UPC, or we can move it along upwards if we need to move in that direction. It would also be, for flavor, because the Space Marines would become the equivalent. So the other option is to put it on Lovelace as a permanent garrison on Lovelace to protect it in case someone tries to kill Lovelace, since we do have both the 14 dogs and the Deathless right on our doorstep. The other force asset I proposed was Deep Strike Landers. As an action, any one non-starship asset, including itself, can be moved between any two worlds within 3 hexes of the Deep Strike Landers at a cost of 2 fat creds. Even if the local planetary government objects, they can still do that. But as it says, albeit doing so is usually an active open war. It has a cost of 25 and HP of 10. I don't. One second, I don't remember if. It does not have an attack or defense, so it's just there to take damage. I think we should start it on 406 because it's in the middle of our empire, either on Aomori or Tibur, because it allows us to transport any unit from anywhere there. That said, if the transit web can move itself from Lovelace to Elvero, it might be more beneficial instead of getting a way of moving force assets, which is the deep strike landers. We could just buy another Space Marine and have it permanently landed on Lovelace, and then have one in Aquila that can move around and defend us there as well. Up next to the next topic, which is HP allocation. I think Serpent should get 8 because it's surrounded by two possible enemies, which is very dangerous for it. And I also think that Lovelace should get 8 because it's also next to 2 possible enemies, and it's kind of dangerous. And then I also think we should get Pixis 8 because if we use it as a mobile base of operations, it'd be very dangerous to leave it hanging in the middle of nowhere with lower HP. Alright, on to the goals. I think we should do Blood the Enemy. It's inflict a number of hit points of damage on enemy faction, assets, or bases equal to your faction's total force, cunning, and wealth ratings, which for us would be 21. Its difficulty is 2, which is kind of low. So in order for us to gain a level, we need to get 20 XP. Difficulty 2 gives us 2 XP. I may be wrong on that, don't quote me. I think we should pick it because it's the best, it's the least committal, and it doesn't require specific actions of the enemy. And no matter who we're fighting, or if we are defending, we can still gain points towards Blood the Enemy. Some other notes, turn 1, we're most likely going to generate income, take the special action, so we can get a ton of money and move Lodestone closer. If you didn't already know, Lodestone, which is Pixis' homeworld, can be moved using the special action, so they can move 1 tile using the special action, and they get to choose where it is. We can technically propose where they go, but they can just veto us if they want to. Okay, and as a military horse, I believe our end goal should be getting a pre-tech logistics so we can get a lot more force assets, i.e. the Space Marines. So the pre-tech logistics, as a special action, you activate the pre-tech logistics to buy 1 force asset on a world that requires up to TL5. So you can purchase any asset, any force asset that we have the strength rating to accommodate, but it costs 1.5 times as many. So like if we were going to buy these Space Marines, for example, it would cost us 45 fat creds in order to buy it. But for example, Zealots cost 6, so it costs 9, and they're a relatively strong unit, so we could use this for defensive purposes as well. It costs 14 fat creds and has an HP of 6. And I do think it should start in Aquila though because of our central location, and it'd be fun RP wise because we're constantly making more units. That is all for my faction asset proposal. Thank you, and have a nice day.